very excited to be here. I will say I tested out GPT and OpenAI to come up with some questions. They were good, but they weren't, I didn't really, I felt like they still needed an editor's touch. So, if all of my panelists, if you can each introduce yourselves, that'd be great. So Olivier, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Olivier. I work for Joanne, and I serve as the manager of CRM loyalty strategy.
Hi, I'm Gail. I'm the CRM manager of Adore Me. And for those who don't know Adore Me, we're a lingerie brand, e-commerce, mainly based on subscription model.
And I'm Jimmy Wotilla. I am the digital marketing manager for Abercrombie & Kent. We're a luxury tour operator out of Chicago.
So it's Abercrombie & Kent, not Fitch. Just
That's
so
correct,
everyone
not
knows
the clothing brand. Yeah.
He never gets that question.
Yeah, I've gotten that basically every introduction so far.
So yeah, check them out. Like they have a lot of cool stuff on their website. But so everyone can just give an overview of where in your marketing cycle you use AI. We'll start with you, Olivier, down the line, please.
Yeah. So there's been quite a bit of like historic usage of AI and machine learning within the organization. We use Phrasee, for instance. It's a generative AI tool that we leverage for like subject line and pre-header language generation. It's based off of our own body corpus of copy. It's brand authentic, and we're able to leverage that to see uplift in click-through rate, and historically open rate's not as relevant as much anymore. We've used a lot of like recommendation engines and things like Adobe and Sensa and things like that in the past, just we have an internal data science team that works on a lot of things that we can use, like propensity models for buying and so on. But obviously the latest rage is the generative AI, and I think just like any other organization, we're trying to wrap our heads around how to use that most effectively, like to come up with, right now use a lot to like come up with like outlines for copy and IDs for headlines and SMS copy and things like that. But it's not yet at scale. And then we're also exploring some interesting things in the AI space with a vendor called Tiny Clues, where we're kind of reverting the value proposition of usually when you think about like offers, the idea that you try to find like what's the best offer for like frequently you give like offers for customers, but you're flipping the value proposition on its head, and you're trying to gauge like if you have a set of offers that are pre-approved, can you find the best customers for them? So then that's kind of a different way to approach the personalization.
Great. We'll go with you, Gail.
So at Adore Me, in the marketing space, because AI is also used for ops and other teams, but if we focus on the marketing team, I would say we have two main usage of AI. The first one is for product recommendation, and the second one is text generation, and this is what basically ChatGPT is able to do. So on the text generation, we have had one success and one where we're still figuring things out. So the successful story is for our product description on the website. So for this task, we have used OpenAI API. We have learned, like we have put a lot of our data, like more than 20K of historical descriptions of products, and the model has learned our tone of voice, and in the end was able to produce the product description almost by itself. I say almost because, of course, we still keep a last touch of human in the end, But to give you an idea, it used to take 20 to 30 hours a month to our copywriters to work on those product descriptions. And now it's only 1 to 3 hours. So divided by 10. So this was a huge success. As for the subject lines, SMS, push notifications, copies, we are still working on it. The copywriters have tried to use it to simplify their work. And for now, it was more making them lose some time because they had to be very specific when asking to the model to produce a given output. And this was taking them time. And then after that, they still had to correct and tweak a bit the copy that was produced by the model. And in the end, they're feeling that they would have been more efficient just writing directly the content, the copy. So we are still working on it. Of course, we need to iterate and probably give even more data into the model so that it can learn and produce not average content, but great content.
Great. Jimmy?
So since we're on a Chat GPT panel, I thought I'd let Chat GPT give my response. But all right, just kidding. Everyone with me? All right. I'm a new dad, so I'm working on my dad jokes. How am I doing? Given the nature of my business in travel, we work in a very highly curated travel experience business with luxury travel. So AI is not super heavily on our radar right now within our business. In the digital space, our team is relatively new, including myself. I just started with my organization last June, and we're really trying to tap into the capabilities of ChatGPT for creative briefing and SEO and some of those, low-hanging opportunities that, usually take a larger team or an agency or, a lot of manpower to get behind. So for me specifically, the creative briefing process is a pretty long and arduous thing each and every week. So I'm using ChatGPT to help generate new subject line ideas, get a little closer to our different segments and our audience, and figure out how to promote our different product lines because they are very specific. A luxury expedition cruise is going to be spoken about a lot differently than a private jet experience. That audience is different, and the tone and voice of those products is a lot different from one another. So I've been exploring it that way, and it's been fun, and we've kind of had some exciting things come from that.
So the segmentation piece, do you think it's more accurate now that you're using AI? Cordial just put that map out there. It was really eye-opening to see so many customer journeys that you guys have to keep track of. So is it really helping you with that, like the AI, just like better segments?
Yeah, I mean, I think with our segmentation and how we speak to the different audiences that we have, it's very much like our writing team has experienced a lot of the destinations that we are promoting, and a lot of what we promote is extremely exclusive, and it's not something that an AI is going to be able to just browse the web and come up with the description for. So I think for me, it's been more of how can I brief this in a way that our writing team can innovate a little bit more, speak a little bit differently within our emails. I mean, when you're talking about travel, all your subject lines are experience India, discover Antarctica. And it gets a little okay, how many things can I discover this month? So I think it's been helpful in that way to really figure out innovative ways to reframe and catch people's attention because, the whole object is to get people in the inbox, so.
So, Gail, for the product descriptions, how do you balance maintaining brand authenticity and not seeming too robotic? So, does your copywriter just look at these descriptions? Can you explain?
So, actually, we have built a tool, like an app in-house, which is connected to OpenAI API, and which is super user-friendly for the copywriter to use. So when they are in the process of putting all the product description on the website, it's actually still manual, but through this app, they just put an idea of a product, and the model is providing few copies. She can copy paste, put it on the website, just correct, like read it once, correct one or two words that felt a bit robotic or a bit weird, not in the tone of voice of the brand. Mm-hmm. And this just human check that takes less than 1 minute, like few seconds, ensure that we are not like fully trusting ChatGPT to provide the content on our website, but at the same time it still like makes the process so much faster and like relief from the burden of doing that by yourself from scratch. Mm-hmm. And also one important thing is that this was also super helpful for SEO purposes. Mm-hmm. Because it's so structured the way that our product descriptions are. It's also a good thing that it's actually a robot that is providing all the structure all the time, so that it's super consistent. Mm-hmm. And that it's helping SEO performance.
Great. So Olivia, you brought up personalization. Can you specify where you're using that AI for personalization?
So one of the things I was talking about, which we're getting into, is we're testing a couple of things that we're working on, like from a churn reduction perspective, we're working on working with just on a high level, using persistency curves to kind of track where the customers are at, and making sure that we get to them before we think that they have a high likelihood of churning, and then also from the other angle of the offer testing that we're working on is like we obviously making sure that we get that relevancy across, and that's something that we're exploring right now with using those intent-based models to look at like what all of the micro signals in the data to see how we can make sure we can maybe serve 20% of the customer base the right offer and get 80% of the results versus exposing that offer to the entire database.
Okay. Great. So let's talk about what may not be working with AI, where you think it needs further development. So any of you guys can jump in if you want. So yeah.
You want to go ahead?
Sure. So I think for us, as I was saying, like as a CRM manager, I would love that our copy process could be even better than it is today, and could be thanks to generative AI. But as I was saying, for now, it's still like the copywriters don't trust enough the algorithm in terms of content that is providing. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually curious of how is it working for you, and how did you reach this level of confidence that now you're using the algorithm to put it into your to use it for your subject lines in your emails. Because for us, like, it's also a question maybe of tone of voice. Like, we feel like sometimes the algorithm is not funny enough to be representative of our brand, or witty enough, or all those stuff that the little spark of human that we didn't see in the chatbot.
Yeah. So we've been using Phrasey for about 7 years, and by we, I mean Joanne. I've been with Joanne for a year, so. But I think what sets us apart from a brand authenticity perspective is that it's learned on the corpus of our data, right? And so it's looked at all of the historic copy that we've used, and looked at like the performance-based data to kind of discern like, okay, this is really this is in our customers, like this is in our brand's voice, but it's also understanding what our customer base has historically resonated with, right? And obviously models like ChatGPT, et cetera, they're kind of they're like a vacuum that sucks up all content on the web, right? And so it's more generic, and it doesn't necessarily always have that voice, and that makes it really useful to make it authentic and real for our customers.
I I think we have the same issues that Gail has with like the lack of human touch with ChatGPT. In experimenting with it, I feel like a lot of the responses come back the same. So you try to prompt it with more and more information, and sometimes I'm like, well, that subject line looks exactly like the one it generated for that trip the other day. So we're kind of, there is a lack of trust there, and I think right now it's more of like an idea starter and like a fuel to the flame. We, our writing team has such specific things that they're writing to and speaking to that I'm curious if we're ever going to be able to get to a point where we can have the writer powering the chat GPT and saying, here's everything you need to know about this experience, and then having that write the short form digital copy. I mean, we still do a lot of print and brochures and magazines and all this stuff, so that's a very long form. I'm not sure it's ever going to fully satiate those needs for that, but I think for short form, I think there's definitely opportunity there, but we're kind of struggling with that human touch as well.
And maybe piggybacking on what Gail was discussing earlier, we talked about the bright side of being able to really speed up your process for SEO. There's also really big dangers and pitfalls. Like Google is not sleeping, and with the deluge of content that people are able to produce right now, it's still its bread and butter is a recommendation system, right? And so it's trying to discern more and more what is human written and what is AI written. And that's obviously going to be a much more difficult conversation to answer as AI gets more advanced. But the point is that there's tools out there, for instance, Inc has a really good one, which has a content shield where you can plop in your content and it'll predict whether Google sees it as AI written or human written. And if Google sees it as AI written, it's going to downgrade your ranking, right? So it's one of the pitfalls could be that you just overly rely on it. They're like, oh, great, it did all the work for me. Copy paste, put it into my CMS, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden you start to see problems with your ranking. Like, what's going on? Well, it's because Google sees it as AI written, which is a problem.
So let's talk about businesses in the room that are looking to get started in this space. If each of you has one piece of advice for them. You already spoke about the pitfalls, but I guess if you had to start brand new today, what would you do? So Jimmy, if you want, we'll start backwards this way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just, I asked my boss, I'm like, hey, do you care if I experiment with this? And she's like, go for it. So it's one of those things where I feel like tech, especially things like this, can be scary. Where do I go? How do I integrate this with my business? But it's you don't want to also get left behind. So I think just taking that first step and trying it, and continue to push the envelope with things. I think tech is only scary if you let it be, and it's kind of embracing it and figuring out where that goes. So that's my very generic response to that, but I mean, just give it a shot. So,
I think I would take all my team and ask them what's their ideas, brainstorm and have everybody being enthusiastic about it and not scared, and more this is gonna unlock so much value. Let's dream about what it could do. So then you get a huge list of use cases, some maybe a bit too crazy. And once you have your list, you can be a bit more methodic about it and okay, so for each of the use case, what's the data available, and which is gonna help you assess the feasibility of it. Then what is the potential impact? What's the potential risk of it? And once you have done all that, then you can just start with, I would say, the lowest risk and easiest use case, and just go with it, because then you have to experiment the full process. Okay, so how do we train the model? First of all, how do we prepare the data? How do we train the model? How do we fine-tune it? How do we then use all that in a process with the copywriters? And just doing that with the lowest risk and the most simple use case is, I think, a good way to start. Start small, and once you understood better how it works, you can start with another use case.
Do you have a piece of advice?
Yeah, and I would echo everything that Jimmy and Gail have been saying. I mean, I think it's two components, right? It's having an experimenter's mindset and just being open to try things and just be like a kid in the toy store and just like start assembling and not being afraid to break something. And then a second probably is just have a curated source of inspiration, right? Like I've seen a lot of great content on LinkedIn. There's a couple of people that I follow, like Steve Nuri and others that like on the regular like produce like real life use cases of how people are using it in the field, which gives me a lot of inspiration. And then there's also like great like sites like Towards Data Science and Medium and others, and if you have a short list of people that like produce quality content that can give you that like inspiration you can take to your organization to start experimenting and learning.
Great. So I see Morgan standing. I think we'll take some audience questions now.
Quick question for the audience. How many people are actually experimenting at some level with ChatGPT in their daily processes right now? So about 8, 9, yeah. So definitely less than half, at least we're willing to admit it. This is not, the camera is not looking at the crowd, so you can, so.
I was actually wondering that question, like how many people are hesitant to actually even use it because they're scared it's going to take their job, so I can see why not that many people raise their hand.
Hi, I'm Mike Wills. I'm from Columbia Sportswear over in Oregon. Quick question, knowing that large organizations have pretty robust privacy and approval processes, have you guys run into any issues with getting ChatGPT Creative approved, or any questions or pushback from any of those parts of the business, mainly privacy, knowing that it's really just pulling from all separate parts of the web?
Yeah, I'll take that. So I think with privacy, privacy obviously is a huge thing. Like, raise your hand if you've been personally attacked by the Apple Mail privacy policy. So I think that's like everyone here. What's an open rate? So I think when I was getting permission to start using the tool, it was very explicit, like, do not publish content directly out of ChatGPT. This is meant to be a thought starter for the creative team because we cannot, there's just like too much risk, I think, in that right now. So I feel like there's a definite hesitancy in our business, which I'm eager to hear from the next speaker, the lawyer on privacy, because I feel like that's going to be interesting to hear their take on this, if you have one. But yeah, that's kind of, we've definitely had some hesitancy.
For our organization, I think it was like we were thinking that this creative process, it's not really dangerous. Like it was not considered as something that could be harmful. It's more like when we are thinking about using ChatGPT for other use cases, like thinking about strategy or planning for financial topic or helping using ChatGPT to for more strategic topics, then the company is really more hesitant on that. And of course, when we I think for now, the usage of OpenAI that we have is with data that anyway people can find. We are launching a new collection. You can see it on our website. We are launching this typical product and we want a product description. You can see it on the website. So it's already publicly available data. So we are not very scared to put it into the algorithm. But for other topics, of course, it's a big question.
And then just a follow-up for Jimmy. I know you're working on your dad joke, so I asked ChatGPT to write a dad joke. Why did the email marketer bring ChatGPT to the Christmas party?
Why?
To help generate conversations with their colleagues.
I like
Very nice. All right, hey, we want to wrap up, say thank you to our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.